So in Kentucky Republicans have just pushed through a resolution to put a Ten Commandments monument outside the state capitol. And they did it with the help of some pathetic Democrats, too. It's not just Republicans, but it's all the Republicans. They want to put a Ten Commandments monument outside the state capitol. Governor Andy Beshear just didn't take any action on it. But even if he had vetoed it, they had enough votes to override the veto. So this isn't really his fault. But let me show you what this resolution is here. This is House Joint Resolution 15. Look at the title. A joint resolution to return for permanent display on the Capitol grounds the granite Ten Commandments monument given to the state in 1971 by the Fraternal Order of Eagles. They got a gift decades and decades ago, and now they want it back because for some reason it was taken down. More on that in a second. But this resolution was passed in the Republican House on a 79-13 vote. And then a couple weeks ago in the state Senate, it passed 32-6. And the bill itself, if you read it, it kind of goes through the history of this monument. And I'll show you what it looks like here. This is the bill. Like, there's a lot of whereas clauses where it just says, here's what happened to this monument over the course of many years. And then at the very end, what do they want to do now, therefore? What do we do? Get our monument back from the people who have it and put it back on the Capitol grounds, and then it becomes permanent. So that's what they want to do with this. Let me tell you, like the Christian Post actually did a nice summary of what happened with this monument. That's easier to read than all the whereas clauses. Check this out. The monument was first donated to Kentucky in 1971 by the Kentucky State Area of the Fraternal Order of Eagles, one of those social clubs back in the time when people left their houses. So they got this gift. I believe that was, correct me if I'm wrong here. I hope I'm not wrong about this. This group made a whole bunch of Ten Commandments monuments in connection to like the Charlton Heston Ten Commandments movie, and they started putting it up on public property. And it remained on display until the 1980s when it was removed for construction. So nothing nefarious happened. They took it down. They were building some stuff. And so then the assumption is, after the construction's over, the monument gets to come back on the property. And while a joint resolution approved by the Kentucky legislature in 2000 said it could come back, well, a federal court decision said, nope, it's not coming back because the Supreme Court's already issued rulings that say you can't have a standalone Ten Commandments monument on public property. So by the time they wanted to bring it back, they could not bring it back. So they gave the monument back to the Fraternal Order of Eagles, and it's like sitting in a shed somewhere right now. So that's the history of this monument. It was up, it was taken down for good reason, and then as soon as they wanted to put it back up, they couldn't. And today, like 20 years later, now they're fighting to bring it back. That's the gist of this. And the only mention of the Supreme Court decisions in that bill, in the resolution, is that they say the Supreme Court upheld an identical monument on permanent display on state capitol grounds. Like the bill they passed says the Supreme Court said this type of monument is okay. What they didn't mention is the Supreme Court said it was only okay in Texas because that monument was surrounded by a bunch of other secular monuments. In fact, the Supreme Court also said that a different Ten Commandments monument outside a Kentucky courthouse that was just by itself is totally illegal. And that's actually the precedent we're talking about here. They didn't mention that in the resolution, which I find very interesting because either they don't know the law or they definitely know the law and don't want anyone else finding out about it. I also want to point out one other thing that I think it needs to be mentioned. The Fraternal Order of Eagles back in the 70s, I feel like people should know this. I know this is according to Wikipedia, but it is confirmed by other sources. At one point, if you wanted to be a member of the Fraternal Order of Eagles, you had to be 21, a good person, not a communist, and white. This is a very racist group of old white dudes now. Is that relevant to the story we're talking about? No. I just want you to know we're talking about white people. And also they finally said, hey, by the late 1970s, they're like, maybe we should get rid of the no people of color rule. I don't know, just a horrible, horrible group of people we are talking about. So anyway, one of the other things that they say in this bill, the whereas clauses, I found this interesting as well. They said, okay, I just mentioned the Supreme Court passed legal precedent that said you can't have a standalone Ten Commandments monument. Look at what they say in their bill. Whereas the legal precedent under which the court said you can't bring this back, it has been abandoned by the United States Supreme Court and is no longer good law. That is a total lie. The Supreme Court has not said, hey, remember that ruling, the church-state separation stuff? Yeah, we got rid of that. They haven't done that. I mean, they would if they could, but they haven't done it yet. So this right here is just a straight-up lie to justify why they should be allowed to do this. And if you want to get into specifics, what are they talking about? They're saying one of the tools the Supreme Court used to use to decide if something was a violation of church-state separation, the Supreme Court says you can't use that tool anymore. And that is frustrating for a bunch of reasons. But just because you get rid of one of the tools doesn't mean the underlying principle is also thrown out the window. Like the First Amendment is still in effect. The Establishment Clause is still in effect. Church-state separation still exists. So this standalone Ten Commandments monument would still be an illegal endorsement of Christianity, even if these ignorant people confuse it with legal displays of the Ten Commandments monument as part of a larger display. So this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. What I don't know is if a lawsuit will be filed. This is what the right-wing legal group First Liberty Institute said about this after this resolution was passed. We applaud the Kentucky legislature for restoring a part of Kentucky's history. We'll stop there for a second. This is not a part of history. You know what they're trying to do? They're trying to pretend this Ten Commandments monument has been up for centuries. It is tradition. And you know what the Supreme Court likes these days? Tradition. That overrides church-state separation. But it's not history. They put it up in the 70s, took it down a little bit later, and then no one saw it after that. It was up for like 2 years, and these morons are like, that's part of Kentucky's history now. So is the graffiti by the courthouse that's been up for decades too. That counts as history too, technically, by their logic. Like Kentucky's monument, there's a long history and tradition of public monuments and displays that recognize the unique and important role the Ten Commandments have played in state and national history. Again, they're lying to you because they're Christian lawyers here. There is no long history and tradition of standalone Ten Commandments monuments. That's bullshit. He's lying. There are displays of like references to Moses as part of a larger secular display. That's not what we're talking about here. These people are such liars. And then this guy goes on to say, the Eagles, the racist white boy club, have donated over 100 Ten Commandments monuments to state and local governments over the years, and we're glad to have ours back where it belongs. That's a dumb argument too. That means if I just give you a monument of any kind, what, you have to put it up? It just goes there because we gave it to you? No, you can't just put up anything you want. But these people, Christian liars who run legal groups, they do not care about any of this. There's no history. By the way, I've said this before too, but in Louisiana, where they want to teach the Ten Commandments and put up a display of them in every classroom, when a federal judge struck down that law last year, what did that judge say in response to the argument that there's a history of putting up the Ten Commandments monument? He said, in sum, the historical evidence showed that the instances of using the Ten Commandments in public schools were too scattered to amount to convincing evidence that it was common. The evidence demonstrates that the practice does not fit within and is otherwise not consistent with a broader historical tradition during those time periods. A federal judge said, there's no tradition of doing this. What are you talking about? I would also tell you that 80 80 religious leaders sent a letter to Andy Bashir saying, please don't put up the Ten Commandments monument. Look at the subject line. Faith leaders support religious freedom, oppose this resolution. And the thing I would point out here, the government must respect the rights of individuals and faith communities to make decisions about the sacred texts that inform our religious understandings and practices. Laws mandating the display of the Ten Commandments on government property demean that freedom. One other thing they say here that I want to point out. Look at this. The text of the monument that they want to put up, it is not universal or inclusive of all faith traditions. In fact, the monument's version of the Ten Commandments don't exist in any translation of the Bible, nor do the Ten Commandments, as such, hold religious meetings for Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, Unitarians, people without faith, religious faith, and matters of faith should remain in the family and in faith communities and not in the hands of government officials. And look at who this is signed by after this letter. It's just 80 religious leaders who say, don't do this. And of course, what did Republicans do? They said, we don't care what the governor says. We're going to do this anyway because we're Republicans from Kentucky, home of Mitch McConnell. We don't care what anyone wants. So it's not just that the monument is unethical for all the reasons I just talked about. It's blatantly unconstitutional. And the question I'm wondering now is when this monument goes back up, because right now it is law, they're going to put this thing back up. Is anyone going to sue over this? Because a couple things to keep in mind, which is if this gets appealed all the way to the Supreme Court, I am worried the Supreme Court's going to say you can have 10 Commandments monuments wherever you want because tradition. And if that's the case, that would be horrible. And I asked a number of church-state separation groups, are you going to sue if and when this monument goes up? Because it's going to go back up. And so far, either they did not respond to me, which they usually do, or they just told me, we have no intention of filing a lawsuit over this right now without explanation. Again, the only plausible reason, because I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking this is a slam dunk, totally illegal thing. This is absolutely the thing you would sue over. And the only plausible reason I can come up with for why they would not sue is because they know the end game here is to get 10 Commandments monuments everywhere. And it might be more strategic to let the idiots in Kentucky put it up in front of the Capitol rather than overturn the precedent that doesn't allow that to happen everywhere. And if one state gets away with it, that might be the hit you're willing to take if you support church-state separation, because you got to think about these strategic battles, and you can't just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. You got to think about the long-term ramifications of it and which battles you want to fight. Anyway, I'll pause there for this story. What other questions we got here? Why do these people even try? It's against the Constitution, just creates strife and expense for the citizens to compel lawmakers to abide by the laws. I know they do it because they can, because it's a show of supremacy for Christians and conservatives and apparently white people. They do it because they can, and they do not care about other human beings. That's the nature of being a conservative Christian today. It is no other people matter. You're the only characters in this universe that matter. I mean, again, you wish they would have some compassion, but that is not a value they hold dear. Apparently, a lot of these Ten Commandment monuments started showing up in 56 to help advertise the movie. And okay, so that helps me explain one thing, which is the monuments may have started appearing in 56, but I thought the Fraternal Order of Eagles did something to capitalize on that. I thought it was in conjunction with the movie. I apologize if I'm wrong about that. But thank you for clarifying the timeline. The Supreme Court is very busy right now. Doubt they'll get to it until we have a president who respects laws. Oh, look at you being adorable and thinking we're going to have another election. They're not busy. What are they doing? I mean, it doesn't take that much work to rubber stamp whatever the Trump administration wants.